All right, the recording has started, and this is the November 30th, 2023 Crossplane community meeting. Last day of November, I think, before we get going into December and the end of the year. Holidays coming up pretty soon. So let's jump into the agenda. There's a good bit of entries on here, but most of them aren't really discussion based. They're more updates and notifications and stuff. So it might not be that long of an agenda. There certainly is room for folks to add things if they're had a topic that they wanted to discuss. Let me quickly go ahead and grab a link to the agenda doc and put that into the Zoom chat here. So you have a direct link to jump into the agenda doc if you're interested as well, to either following along or adding an agenda topic of your own. All right, so since the last time we met on November 16th, 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of different patch releases. So I wanted to go ahead and call those out so that folks could see those and be aware of those as well. So first, so we did 1.14 release right around the beginning of November. So it's been about a month now so that 1.14 has been out. And we did our second and third patch release for bugs and issues that folks in the community have found since installing 1.14 and getting going with it. There's a bit of a theme there, I think, with some updates to the package manager and the way that it handles various revisions of packages as it's upgrading them and releasing objects and cleaning up objects and stuff like that. There was a couple small regressions that got introduced from some of that code churn. So for instance, folks in certain scenarios that were using defining a service account to use, that would not be stable and would end up kind of oscillating over time. So we fixed an error with that, which is probably the most useful thing in the .2 patch release to call out. And then in the .3 patch release, there was also a fair bit of refactoring and movement around with the move to mature composition functions to beta. So there was a regression that was introduced around the order that patches are applied when you have environment config and other patches as well. And so that behavior changed unexpectedly in 1.14. It was not intentional. So we did release the .3 patch release to get that behavior back to the way that it was in 1.13 because it was not intended to be a breaking change. So those are the most important ones to call out. I don't know off the top of my head yet of any candidate fixes for a .4 patch release, but .3 is the latest one, and we're always happy to see more feedback, though, if folks find issues with that, and we'll continue doing patches to keep driving the reliability and stability of the 1.14 branch.
Is the issue with selectors and patching arrays still under investigation?
Yeah, Matt, really good question. So yes, it is. I don't know right now myself if that's something it must be done in core Crossplane or if that's something that we've done in the providers, the generated controllers and such there. But that is still something that's on the table and like something to continue tracking and need a fix for that. I believe, yes. Don't know where it's going to land though. Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because either we fix it in Crossplane and it adds a lot of maintenance of it, or we fix it in providers and it adds a lot of maintenance of it. It's not an easy one to just choose the right answer. But as far as I know, we're looking into using the server-side apply approach rather, with providing the necessary markup in the provider code to be able to have that work. Opera is looking into this at the moment and is still trying to finalize it, and it might be it's not like it will be a immediate fix.
John, you got muted somehow. I didn't do it.
What was the last thing I said? What did you heard?
It won't be an immediate fix.
Yeah, it won't be an immediate fix for everything. We might need to selectively apply it on certain resources. Opera's on it right now. It's he's been on it all week so far, and he's well, once he has some confidence in the next steps, he will communicate further on that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that more specific update on that, John. And I pulled up the issue here where at least where I saw the latest update on it. And then I think this is probably the issue that Matt was referring to specifically as well too. So thanks for bringing that up, Matt. All right. So yep, those are patch releases. And we just talked about another fix that we're investigating into right now. So then 1.15. We have started the 1.15 cycle, after we released 1.14 the beginning of November. It has been a month, but it doesn't feel like that much time has actually passed. It feels like since KubeCon Chicago, things have been moving quickly, but not at the same time. So things have started moving on 1.15 roadmap items. The top two things that are getting attention and focus are the maturing of environment configs or composition environments to their beta level. We have a specific agenda item later to kind of talk about the design proposal that Philippe is driving on that one. So we will, I'll go ahead and click on this here. I see activity for folks going to it. I may as well bring it up on my screen as well. So Philippe does have a design document and proposal on that. We'll talk more about that later. So there's definitely some movement that's been happening on that. Developer experience will continue to be a major investment in the Crossplane project over the next couple milestones for sure as well. We're getting a bit of a slow start on that one, but the theme still there should be validation and feedback, more of that during authoring time. So, you have composition, you have the beta render command right now to take your compositions and spit out the rendered resources so you can kind of iterate in a tight loop over them. But there's no schema checking, there's no validation. So, there's no real clear understanding of if they're accurate or not. And so that's the focus that we want to have of how we can add validity and make sure that we're helping you get your compositions correct right away just in your development environments. So that'll be the major focus there. Nick is out taking a well-deserved vacation for the rest of the year. But before he left, he made some major progress on continuing to promote and mature composition functions towards GA. Most notably, he made available an entire Python SDK as well. So folks who are more Python inclined and less Go inclined now have an option for being able to write functions within Python and have a library, packages, whatever, to be able to support that effort from the SDK there. So definitely take a look at that. And that's the progress that Nick made before taking off. So there's those are the major things in the milestone. And so what I also see here, to be fully transparent, folks, is that holidays are going to be a reality for a lot of folks on the team, right? So this milestone in particular is looking a little short in terms of how much actual working cycles folks have on it. So we're delivering on the epics and features in the roadmap in that prioritized order of the most impactful things: composition environments, environment config, developer experience, composition functions, etc. But late January is going to get here sooner than later. So in my mind, I'm kind of contemplating a bit more still on engineering resources that we have amongst the community, timeline for the release, etc., and thinking about maybe moving this a bit, but no update on that. Just kind of a conscious awareness that 1.15 is a short time frame with the holidays. Anything that folks want to hear about for 1.15 before we move on? All right. Then let's go ahead and take a look-see then at providers here. Jean, do you want to go ahead and take this section and give us some updated news on providers?
Yeah, so for the outbound providers, we release new versions on the last Thursday of every month, which is today. And provider AWS is just a bunch of bug fixes and new resources, similar with Azure and GCP. Terraform, there's a couple of new features in there. And then provider Azure 80 is the next one that's moved on to Update 1.0. So it's using the new architecture now as well. And I'll actually just quickly skip over and give the update as well. So we're busy rolling out Update 1.0 on provider Azure and GCP. If all goes well, plus minus 2 weeks, we should have it ready. At the same time, we're also working on Update 1.1, which will bring support for the Terraform provider framework. And while I'm talking, I will also mention the Crossplane provider AWS has a new release there as well, patch release.
John, is that the Terraform plugin framework or the provider?
I keep missing. Yeah, it's plugin framework. I keep screwing that one up.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I don't have an understanding of what it is, but I know that word gets mixed up a few amount of times. So I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so
it wasn't something else.
No, it is not. And just for those interested, Terraform plugins are encouraged to use the new Terraform provider framework, and there's quite a significant API change between the two. And since we directly integrate with the providers now, and we don't have the benefit of having Terraform CLI abstract these things away from us, there's a bit of work to get the integration with those resources going.
Awesome, John. So I think the big takeaway there that would be good news for a lot of folks is that if we're able to have the Azure and GCP providers updated on that new architecture and major performance improvements there before holidays start, that's very, very exciting as well. Cool. So yeah, folks that also depend on Azure and GCP providers, I think that if folks that have good scenarios where they've seen performance issues with those previous providers there, want to do some early validation and testing, that's likely going to be helpful as well once that becomes available. All right. So I think we can move on then to the community topics section here. So as always, we've got just a short little list of content here of things where Crossplane is being mentioned, written about, video recordings about, etc. One thing I wanted to mention is that this is spelled correctly. The team at Upbound wrote a new Crossplane reference architecture that is kind of in the vein of the cloud native operational excellence effort that a lot of folks like the AWS and other companies have been kind of building there. So a reference architecture to be able to deploy cloud native architecture resources with Crossplane that fits the theme of what the new effort's doing. So this is a quick way to get onboarded and moving pretty quick to kind of accelerating the journey there. So happy to see feedback on that one. Christopher couldn't make today's community meeting, but he has signed himself up for a demo and walking through that in more details in the next community meeting. And folks can click through these links on their own time, later on. Definitely some interesting stuff and continuing to folks sharing their stories about Crossplane. In a similar vein, all the talks from KubeCon Chicago have now been published up. I've taken a sampling of the ones that I remember distinctly being about Crossplane and added links to them here. So folks, if you weren't able to be in Chicago, or you missed those talks and wanted to catch up with them, here are the direct links to them, and you can go check those out and let us know. I think every one of those speakers will be happy if you reach out to them for any questions. So let us know if there's anything you want to chat about there. So this is wrong. Call for proposals, CFP. So the CFP for KubeCon Paris is over now. It ended last weekend. But there's this call for papers, proposals, etc., for all of the co-located events in Paris is still open. That one has not closed yet. So if you're thinking of speaking at like the Argo one or Platform Engineering Day, et cetera. Do get those talks in soon. You just have a few more days left on that. And thank you, Stephen Borelli, because he saved me for my KubeCon submissions to the main conference by helping me realize that the deadline is midnight on Sunday, but Europe time. So if you're a Pacific time zone or something like that, that means like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So thanks again to Stephen for saving me for the main KubeCon submission timeline on a Sunday afternoon. Got him in at the last minute, I think with like 3 minutes to spare. So that was awesome. And I'm going to take special note of that for this one. So I still have some ideas about submitting some talks to the Platform Engineering Day specifically. And I think actually, honestly, it's an opportunity if you did submit a talk about Crossplane and Platform Engineering stuff to the main KubeCon, you can resubmit those to Platform Engineering Day specifically as well. I think you can look at it as maybe hedging your bets, but there's parts of the submission form that you can kind of talk. You can be specific about what all you are submitting to, so the program selection committee has a better idea of where things are. But I think there's no issue with trying to get your talks into multiple places. And as always, if you want to reach out to get feedback or reviews on any of your proposals, just reach out to me and I'm happy to read those and give some feedback as well. All right, Pete, you are online here today. Do you want to kind of give us a quick either overview or, help people understand a little bit more of the API docs stuff that you've been doing and what feedback you might want on it as well?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I went to go add it to the agenda and you'd already beat me to it. And hopefully my mic software is suppressing the fact that the vacuuming just started outside my door when I went.
Don't hear it at all.
Perfect. So one of the things we've had for a while, a lot of folks are using docs.crd or doc.crd.dev or whatever to pull API documentation for Crossplane. It's always seemed like a little bit of a weakness that we don't have it in our own docs. So this is now going to be coming out maybe tomorrow, maybe on Monday. But it is the full API documentation for the core types directly in the Crossplane docs. And this is generated from the YAML files in source. I am hoping to be able to make a fork of this so that users can basically build their own static HTML files with the same thing to document any of their own internal APIs, because it's all the same stuff, right? There is a deploy preview that is linked that you can see here. Feel free to take a look. There's an issue linked if you've got comments or feedback. Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. I think that's going to be super, super useful. And I know that you've been working on it really hard and it's come quite a long way to where it's pretty smooth. It's easy to use, easy to navigate. The functionality is there. So I really like where it's at now. But I know there's probably some great opinions as well from, folks amongst the community here that we're going to be using these to build a platform and consume and adopt Crossplane, right? So anybody who's got feedback is definitely, once again, super, super welcome to add that to. Probably the best place to do it is this docs issue number 440 that's linked in the agenda doc. And, if you've got some ideas about how to improve it or make it better, feel free to add them there.
And just because I know everybody's very concerned, I did check. It does work with Microsoft Edge.
Thank you, Pete. You've saved the day once again. Cool. All right. So then the next item here is Philippe is not able to make it today, but he, as we mentioned before, he has been doing some work on defining what it will take to move the composition environments or environment config stuff to beta. So this is the pull request right here, 5061. And so Philippe outlines here a few sections, like one, where is environment config right now? What are the issues that we see with it for difficulty to use it, complexity in the implementation, bugs, etc. And then he lays out a proposal for what he would like to see changed or what he believes needs to be changed in order to get this API to a place where we can call it mature and into the beta level. So his guidance there is in this document, and I highly recommend folks that are using environment config already, and especially if you've taken it to production environments, to check out this pull request and let Philippe know some of the feedback there, and what's important for you and your use cases and such. So that'll be really, really important there. There's also a special interest group specifically for environment config composition environments. So if you're interested in meeting there and having a more direct discussion with Philippe and other folks working on it, then you're more than welcome to join that on I think it's on Wednesdays as well. So in a related spirit here, there is another issue that's kind of swirling around in the same theme here, where functions being able to get extra data given to them for their execution. So you can kind of think about it as like configuration and data in the related environment that a function is running. So it's kind of related to composition environments as a whole. So I wanted to plug this issue here as well. There's a lot of discussion on that, and it kind of affects this whole theme here. So if you're interested in composition environments, that is another link that you're welcome to click on and provide feedback there as well. All right. Stephen, you are online. So I'll let you go ahead and talk then about the latest updates to the Crossplane migrator that you've been working on.
Yeah, this is just fixes a subtle issue about the way environment configs are handled within function patch and transform. It just basically moves the patches down into the function itself, but the rest of the environment configs are at the composition level. So yeah, that's basically it.
Cool, thanks, Stephen. And then a reminder as well, folks, that we're anticipating folding in this functionality that Stephen's written from a standalone tool into the core Crossplane CLI during the 1.15 timeframe as well. So I don't anticipate like functionality changes from that, just that it will be consumable from the Crossplane CLI and alongside all of the other functionality that's already there. So feel free, folks, to join in on that too. Cool. And then there is one more item we had on the agenda here, the community topics. So Philippe did some efforts a week ago or so, pretty recently, around adding support into Renovate for Crossplane packages. I don't know if folks are using Renovate in their own environments, but we definitely use it in the Crossplane project as a means to automatically keep all of our dependencies up to date. So Renovate, understands Go packages and imports and stuff, but it also understands like GitHub Actions and all sorts of other types of software artifacts. And so Philippe did the effort to go to Renovate and add specific knowledge to Renovate's logic about Crossplane packages. So now if you're using Renovate, you can use it to keep all of the versions of Crossplane configurations, providers, all that stuff that you depend on. You can keep those up to date in your repository. So for instance, here's an example of configuration you would add to your renovate.json file, where this one's saying renovate bot for everything in the every YAML in the example folder. Look for Crossplane packages in there and make sure that they're up to date. And so Renovate will go see that you've got some version of a provider, and then if there's a new version of that provider that's been published, then Renovate bot will open a PR with those changes to basically update your manifests for you with the new versions of providers and configurations. So I think this definitely is a nice augmentation to the existing, package manager dependency management stuff. It's like in your GitHub repositories, you can just keep those up to date automatically now, one less thing to worry about. So thanks, Philippe, for that. Even though you're not here today, your contribution is appreciated. Cool. And so before we then go on to the additional topics down there, anything else that folks wanted to bring up in the community topics area? Okay, then let's take a quick look then. So it looks like Arjun, you added a PR that you wanted to discuss there real quick.
Yes. So, and thank you. We met at KubeCon, and you suggested this PR would be a good PR for someone like new for me to
Yeah.
work. And just a quick question on the PR. What is the priority of this? Like, it's like really urgent, not so urgent, nice to be urgent.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, really good question, Arjun. So I think this falls into the bucket of improving the developer experience in Crossplane, right? And so there's kind of two major buckets there. One is making it easier to build your Crossplane platform. You know, when you're authoring, you're building, you're in your development environment, you're on your local laptop. Like, we're doing a whole bunch of investments there to make it just easier to get your platform correct first when you're first building it. And then this falls into the other bucket of okay, Crossplane is operating, it's running, something goes wrong. So like runtime observability, like, is it healthy? Okay, there's something wrong. How do I figure out what is wrong and how can I make it, you know, how can I get to that root cause more quickly? And that's the bucket that this falls in. So we've had this problem for a while, Arjun. It's existed for a while. It's not a new issue. So I wouldn't say the priority is urgent, because it's not something that just, you know, it's like a regression that's like affecting people and breaking functionality. It's just a long-standing pain point for people. So it's in the 1.15 timeline, you know, like we're targeting late January for that release. That would be totally cool to try to target like that kind of timeline for this. And it's not more urgent than this. I wouldn't do like a patch, like a mid milestone patch release for this. I just, you know, have it ship in the 1.15 boat overall late January.
Great. That's great to know, because this is like an open source and I'm just getting started on it. So it's a bit of a heavy lift for me while I work on my day job. So just wanted to ask that question here.
Yeah, for sure, man. I totally get that. And it's always really appreciated too for folks contributing and getting involved, man. So happy to see you around and start taking this on too, dude.
Great. I know you shared one resource with me, which was the Amsterdam presentation, but I looked on YouTube for the Amsterdam talk. There, I couldn't find the talk link. I just see the presentation, which is the slides. I don't see the talk on that link. So that's one of the other things I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I think it exists. I don't know if it's been moved or something. Maybe can you, RJ? Yeah, if you can send me a DM to remind me to go look for that, then I'll follow up on that today.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Thank you. All right, cool, folks. So that's everything that was on the agenda, Doc. Amit, you have your hand up there. Yes, what can we do?
Yeah, I do have a question, and I was playing around with Crossplane and Argo CD together. And one of the things which I wanted to try and figure out was, can Crossplane ensure that it's always GitOps based, which means that if I basically make a change manually, it's going to revert that change. And this is especially important for something like an IAM role. So I did make some changes and tried it out. But on the background, I got errors on Crossplane end, which basically told me that you cannot, a change has been made manually, so you cannot, Crossplane cannot make these changes anymore, cannot revert these changes, cannot modify this particular resource. Is that expected behavior?
In general, no. You know, that's one of the general functionality of, you know, of detecting, you know, configuration drift and correcting it is something we show off all the time, like in demos and stuff. So like as part of the core functionality of Crossplane, that should be totally supported. So I'm curious, like, to hear maybe more about like, this may be something that has to do with that particular field or update that was changing, and if that's something that's not supported being changed over time, maybe. But in general, it should work.
Okay, this was for the GCP provider which I was using, or the GCP family. So when I did make a modification to an IAM role, that's where I kind of ran into an issue where it could not go and revert the permissions. It's possible that I'm using an older provider and I need to upgrade.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But yeah, that's definitely is kind of unexpected to see that. You know, if like, because there are fields that if you change them, you know, it requires like a destruction of the resource, and Crossplane refuses to do that. It will not delete resources to update things that are only updatable that way. So that's one thing that comes to my mind. But otherwise, though, hey, Crossplane saying, hey, this has changed elsewhere and I can't handle that is unexpected behavior that I haven't seen before. Stephen or Bob or anybody else in the call, like, is this something you'd seen before that is ringing a bell?
I haven't seen it explicitly, but it also wouldn't surprise me that, there could be something that you do on the console that just can't be reverted, given the complexities, especially of IAM. But I'm not a Google expert by any means.
Okay. I'll probably, if you don't mind, Jared, I'll ping you on the Crossplane Slack channel if with the errors, and maybe you could point me in the right direction.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, looking at what the specific area is, let's see if we can figure something out.
That'll be fantastic. Really
Cool.
appreciate that.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. All right. Well, cool. Then I think that's everything then on the agenda and what folks wanted to talk about. So looks like we can probably wrap it up early here today. So yeah, thanks everybody for attending and sharing your thoughts and everything. And we will see each other in 2 weeks from now. Bye.